Hi everyone, again this is Emmy and I'm very happy to see you all again joining me this lunchtime for assessing effectively in remote setup. So again, I'm going to be giving you a walkthrough of how we could be able to create a good
Hi everyone, again
experience
this
of
is Emmy
assessing
and
and creating a good experience and creating a good experience of assessing in a remote setup. All right. Again, for those people who haven't met me yet, my name is Emmy Baylon. I'm a junior and senior high school faculty and an EdTech mentor from De La Salle, Santiago, Zabel, in the Vermosa campus. It's always a delight to me to reach out to a lot of teachers who are really trying their very best to cope with our transition to remote learning. So, what exactly are we going to learn today? So, today we will be focusing our attention to assessment for learning. What will be the role of the teachers in assessing for learning remotely? What exactly are the things that we're going to do for us to be able to really gauge well our students as we venture online or remote learning? My partner, Mr. Raymond Mitchell Africa, will be helping me out in providing you tips on how to be able to assess your students effectively in this remote setup. Alongside, I'm going to be giving you also tips on how to be able to remotely assess your students and provide effective feedback to them. Last meeting, we were able to talk about assessment for, of, and as learning. This module that we're taking up is taken from rethinking about assessment and its purpose from Dr. Lorna Earle of the University of Toronto. So she particularly created three aspects of assessment so that we could be able to improve performance of our students in a classroom setup, whether it's a classroom setup face to face or even a remote learning. So last meeting, I was able to distinguish the three: assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and at the same time, assessment as learning. In our module, if you're able to take a look at module number 2, Dr. Earl was able to distinguish the three and at the same time gave us a balance of how it is to be able to attain the right amount of assessment in our education setup. And she was able to propose that in order for the students to really feel that there is really a good assessment given to them by their teachers, it's important that we have assessment of learning on top, but we give priority more on assessment for learning and assessment as learning so that students can embrace properly how exactly learning would happen to their class or in their learning experience. So allow me to go to the next slide. Last meeting, I also provided the tips on how to be able to give effective feedback. I also discussed to you the importance of feedback in an effective teaching learning experience. Also, last meeting, we were able to give you 10 important ways to remember in providing assessment for learning and at the same time assessment and giving feedback in general to your students on a remote setup. Today, we will try our very best to tackle assessment for learning. It is designed to make each student understand, visible, so that teachers can decide where exactly would they be able to push for students' progress. Dr. Erb gave premium on the role of teacher to be able to ensure that there is an investigative tool so that they could be able to balance as much as they can about what the students know and what they can do and correct confusions, perceptions, and gaps along the way so that they could be able to ensure that they're taking the right paths for the learning process. Again, assessment for learning. In assessment for learning, it's primary that we give formative feedback. It is important that teachers could be able to give formative feedback not only towards the end of the learning process, but the teacher should be able to give formative feedback anytime within the learning process. So as teachers, what would be our roles? One, it is important that we could ensure that there is alignment towards targeted outcomes that we're going to set for that specific learning process. It's also important that we would be able to identify particular needs, particular learning needs of the students that would be placed under our ward. It's important that we could be able to ensure that the idea of the styles, the learning styles of the students we will be able to identify them so that we could be able to set the right paths for them. It's important also that we could be able to select the right materials, the right things that the students would be using so that they could be able to adapt with the materials and the resources that you're going to employ or you're going to distribute to them. Particularly in this remote setup, it's important that we could be able to do needs analysis. The needs analysis that we would be able to create would be able to guide us as we make those materials that would engage our students towards the learning process in this remote setup. It is also essential that our students would be given differentiated teaching strategies and learning opportunities. Again, we're not supposed to be giving them one path alone because sometimes our students would be able to learn differently. And by providing them varied learning paths, we are already addressing the abilities of the students, the capacity of the students to be able to learn not only a content, but to be able a certain skill that would enable them to cope with the situation. And lastly, as they learn formatively, it is important also for teachers to be able to provide immediate feedback and directions to the students so that they would know where exactly they are, what exactly are the modifications they should do, so that they could be able to correct themselves along the way, so that they could be able to really find themselves learning the right way in the teaching learning process. So those are the important learnings, the important roles of the teachers as we prepare for assessment for learning. To dig deeper about assessment for learning, I am going to be doing this session with another partner. So I am going to be sharing experience with you and my partner. My partner here is an IBMYP Science and Design faculty from Manila Xiamen International School. He has been practicing EdTech for quite some time. We've had several meetings together in EduTech Philippines and EduTech Asia, and I'm sure he has a varied experience of how it is to be able to include technology in aid of learning for assessment for learning. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Raymond Mitchell, Africa. Good afternoon, Raymond.
Hello, good afternoon. Hi, good afternoon, Miss Emmy, and good afternoon, everyone who's watching right now. Thank you so much to Miss Emmy and, of course, Rex Bookstore for inviting me this afternoon to talk about formative assessment. Again, I am Raymond Mitchell, Africa. I'm a faculty from Manila Shaman International School, and I've been practicing EdTech for 4 to 5 years already. And yes, like what Miss Emmy mentioned, we met a couple of times in EdTech conferences. Hi, good afternoon, and I hope to learn a lot and share with you, okay, about assessment in remote learning.
Yes. Thank you very much, Raymond, for giving us this opportunity for being with us today. I know you've been quite busy, but I'm sure a lot of our Filipino viewers would be learning a lot from your experience. So let's keep the ball rolling. I'll be asking you some questions, and then perhaps it's good to be able to share to them and provide them some insights about these experiences. So allow me to get started.
Yes.
Right. So of course, assessment for learning occurs throughout the learning process, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
In remote learning, what are the reasons for you why you need to assess your students?
Same as with face-to-face instruction or in our classroom, why we need to assess is because assessment informs us teachers where the students are right now in the learning process. Like what you mentioned about assessment for learning, we need to know if the learning is too challenging for them or not challenging enough. Okay, I wanted to know what does the learner or my students need to know, need to understand, and be able to do in order for them to succeed. And this assessment will be able to provide valuable information for how teachers can develop specific and uniquely tailored lessons for better learning and deeper engagement. Just like
Right.
here, yes.
Right. In the pictures, in the slides right now, we're showing you we're showcasing some of the ways you're able to assess your students. Right. Would you
Yes.
like to give us a description of how what exactly are these activities and how it is able for you to be given an idea of where exactly are the students in terms of their skills in the subject that you're teaching?
Okay, so the first, the one on the left side. So I use a digital portfolio there. Okay, and the student submitted a video of this is in my design lesson, my design class. I asked them to recreate their learning space. So in design, we are looking for we are assessing not only the product or the outcome, but the process. So
Right.
here, yes. So here I provided feedback, okay, on the project, okay, the task done by my student, and this serves as a motivation for them. And aside from that, I also asked their peers to assess their work.
Right. So
So
you're
yeah.
also giving students that opportunity to be able to provide feedback on the work of their classmates.
Yes, yes. So
I love that.
to tell their classmates what are the points that they like, and what are some suggestions, if they have some suggestions on how they can improve, or some recommendations and questions as well. So I asked them to tag. That's my term. Okay, tag your classmates. What are the things that you like? Ask a question and give suggestions. So that's
Right.
a,
I
that's a,
like
that's a term that, yeah, tag.
I like
So
I
tag
like that
them.
idea. Right. I like that idea that you're providing them tagging abilities to be able to reach out to their classmates so that they could be able to also say the way things should be improved, the way a student like them would be
Yes.
perceiving it. Am I correct?
Yes, because I'm actually relating this as well in their social media posts. Sometimes in social media posts, this actually is a practice or training for them. So if we practice or train them, okay, this is how you comment, this is how you tag your classmates, say something that you like, or ask a valuable question, and give some suggestions. So that's, we can perform this, or we can um, use this skill in actual, social media
Right.
network.
Right. In the picture towards the right side, I saw that you're doing digital inking. Right. Um,
Yes.
is it important? Do you feel that digital inking can also be valuable in providing feedback to students? Like I saw
Yeah,
you writing your own comments about the student's work,
yes.
and I feel as a student, I find that value. As a teacher, I find that. Do you think digital inking can also be a way for you to provide effective feedback for students?
Yes, I think digital inking will be useful and will be helpful for students, because like what I did there. So I use digital inking to correct, because that's what students need to understand as well. It's not that they are wrong. Okay, it's not that we are punishing them for answering incorrectly, but rather we want to correct them. So after that, after I do digital inking, what I did, okay, in that particular lesson, that's a simulation. So we had a simulation in science, and then I asked them to write down their answers in our digital notebook, and then I provided this feedback, this comment. I corrected it, and then after that I explained. So there should be an explanation why it was incorrect, and why this one is the correct answer.
Right. And I
So
think
yeah.
I agree with you. And I think providing that immediate feedback would also guide the
Yes.
students in creating that right perception so that the next time you give them the same or perhaps a parallel exercise, they will not commit the same mistake. Am I correct?
Yes, that's true. Because what we have to consider as well right now in remote learning is the feedback. When are we going to give the feedback? Because if we provide this feedback later on, it will be harder for the students really understand what is correct and what was the correct answer or what I did wrong. So
Right.
there should be an urgency when it comes to providing or immediacy when it comes to providing feedback to the
Very good.
students.
I like that. I like that. Thank you. I like this sharing. One slide pa lang yan and he's already giving you a lot of tips. Now, let's go to this next slide. You've seen also it's evident that there's digital inking. The students are also the students noticeable that the students are writing. Do you also recommend that example in remote setup? I know that's also one of the perceptions of teacher na kapag remote setup, kailangan nakatype lahat ng sagot, right? Possible pa din ba na nagsusulat or is possible that the teachers could still encourage their kids to write in a remote setup or in remote learning?
Actually, when I started EdTech, I thought that, okay, so we will do everything paperless, we'll just type. But then, nakita ko din kasi is what I observe is they are lacking this writing skills.
Right,
They are, yes. So what I did is, okay, so we're gonna do remote learning. Actually, this actual pictures or the images here are done remotely. So I did this in during March, April during our remote learning. So what I did is I set up a notebook, a digital notebook for them, and then I asked them to. So they have this opportunity to write. So if they wanted to write, so it's differentiated. So if they wanted to write, they can write, or if they wanted to type it, they can type it as well. But I really recommend, though we are in remote learning, still writing. So what I did as well here is I wrote my feedback so that the students can say, oh, teacher is actually checking it. Teacher is providing feedback. I need to do my task and I need to write as well. Okay. So it's
right. I
possible.
like
It's
that
possible.
idea. Right. Mitchell, I like that idea that you're telling them to provide feedback is really for you to give that perception to the students that you're really taking time to read their materials. I like that.
Mhm. Thank you.
Right.
Yes,
And
it's really important for the students because when you give task activities and then they are not getting any feedback from you, especially in remote learning, because in the classroom they can ask you, teacher, we're able to check, teacher, how is this done? But in remote learning, um, you might do asynchronous learning where the students will be doing their tasks on their own, and then if they are not getting any feedback, the tendency is they will lack that motivation, and then eventually they will not do it anymore. It will become a
right.
habit. So you need to set that right away, at the beginning, and then you have to continue it. I know it's taxing, it's really challenging, but yeah, I understand that we can do it. We can do it. Yes.
Right. Notice that you're teaching science, and science, as we all know, is a very challenging content. It's a very challenging subject. And it's
Yeah.
important also that as you said, it's important that you're able to give feedback right away, but it's also important that you gauge misconceptions. So, given that as you said a while ago, some of these activities were done asynchronously, meaning on their own, how are you able to gauge perceptions, preconceptions, and misconceptions of students?
What I do, even in regular, instruction, I always do this KWL chart. It's
Right.
what you know, what you want to know, and what you learn after the lesson, and so that I know, and diagnostic. It's like a diagnostic assessment for me to know what they know prior to teaching, to gauge where they at the moment, and then what they wanted to learn more about that particular topic, and then afterwards what they learned. So the preconceptions I can right away, I can write during the lesson or during the class. We can discuss that. What I use is I also use a visual discussion tool. So instead of just charting it, Okay, because my students, oh, teacher, KWL chart again, they know it already. But what I do is I put a little, something new. Okay, so I use a video discussion tool. I make a prompt, a question, and then they will discuss. Same as with the reflection. It's like that.
I like that you're able to highlight the importance of diagnostics. And in a remote setup, especially if you're not able to really see students face to face often, right? And if most of the time your classes are asynchronously, it's important that you're able to really know where they are coming from. You would be able to
Yes.
really gauge what they know prior to teaching them, so that you could
Mhm.
be able to use those data in creating ways on how to be able, as I said, correcting misconceptions,
Misconceptions.
right,
Yes.
and knowing the preconceptions of students on certain topic, and perhaps it would also be a motivating factor on your end to really know what are they interested of in learning the topics that you're saying. Am I correct?
Yeah, yes,
Right.
yes. You can
So,
also use like online quizzes or like poll questions for that so that
mhm,
you have the data as well. Like what you mentioned, you have the data and then you can, review it and evaluate and then after that, oh okay, so this I need to focus more on this topic, okay, or I need to change this and modify
pick a
this.
certain thing, right?
Mhm.
Right. Thank you. And in that note, how does your school plan for alignment of curriculum? A while ago, I mentioned that it's important that in assessment for learning, alignment of curriculum with whatever it is that's designed by your school, or whatever it is that's prescribed, example by the national education. Let's say in your case, China. How are
Mhm.
you able to plan it out? What are you suggesting? What can you suggest to Filipinos to ensure that alignment of skills and competence would be evident as they design the remote learning formative assessments?
As we always say, it's the pedagogy first before the technology. Okay, so we have to know the learning objectives, what outcomes are expected, and in remote learning, what we need to do is we need to keep the expectation simple. I suggest to keep the content simple, and yeah, we have to tailor our content from the learning objectives, and then from there we can choose. I know that there are myriad of tools of ed tech apps that you can use, but before you move on to that, you have to think first. Okay, what are my objectives? What are the things? And then after that, you can collaborate with your department and with your colleagues on how are you going to provide or on how are you going to make this learning experience more engaging and motivating, because the challenge here in remote learning is how can we motivate and how can we keep this motivation in learning continues throughout this remote learning experience,
I
because
agree.
I think it will be like for one semester. So yeah, and then yeah, collection of the data from all throughout the learning process and checking for understanding during synchronous sessions,
I
and
agree.
always make the data useful.
Right.
Use your
As you
data.
see it in your as you see it in the slides in front of you, this is an example of an instruction given by Mitchell in one of his classes. Now, I saw how thorough your instructions are. Why do you think is this an asynchronous class?
Because what I did with my schedule is it's a blended schedule.
Right.
So I have synchronous and asynchronous. During the first term, and for my middle school students, for my older students, I did asynchronous first before synchronous. So I asked them to study the lesson first, just like in flip learning. So I give them time to review, to check on the content, and then after that, I give them time for us to discuss, for them to collaborate on a task. So I make it, yeah, I make it thorough, I make it specific and brief. So that's for 1 week that they have to accomplish, so that they have the schedule and they can manage their time, because we have some students, because this is an international school, so we have students that are not in Xiamen as well. So I have to consider the time difference. So some of the
Right.
students cannot do they cannot attend synchronous session. So at least they have the time that they have the all the tasks that they need to finish. They have like the checklist. Yes.
Right. Just a follow up. What advice can you give teachers? Particularly, I saw that your instructions are very thorough. What advice can you give teachers whenever they're giving instructions remotely? Especially if they're, example, doing work on a learning management system. How how do you think should they be able to give instructions for students, especially if they're doing their class asynchronously? Of course, in asynchronous class, you don't see each other often, right? So what
Mhm.
tips can you provide them, especially when they're about to give instructions to their students?
What I did is, aside from this, so aside from this note, I also give like a short video. Like I film myself. Students, they will like it. Okay, they will even comment on your video, in order to reinforce, okay, whatever is written there. Because sometimes they tend to disregard this notes. Okay, some of the students, they are more into watching, just like them watching YouTube videos, TikTok videos, or FB videos. So you can make it more creative so that they can engage more to the instruction, and then regular checks as well. So
Right.
it's not enough that you provided this at the beginning. It's not enough that you gave this at the start of the week. You have to do regular checks, and then you can ask the students, okay, so kindly check if you're able to do task 1 and 2, or so it's an update. It's an update, especially for asynchronous class, because at the end, and then at the end of the week, what I do is I gave them, a short. It's like a checklist of the things that they
Mhm.
did or did not.
I like that. I like that you're able to really make sure that you're giving follow throughs, which would make me segue to the next part of my question. What steps do you take to identify the learning needs of your students, particularly during remote setup? Because as you said a while ago, there are students who might not be able to attend your synchronous class because of time difference, or there might be students who are not necessarily in shaman, hence it's difficult for them to really see you often. So what steps do you take in order for you to ensure that they still feel that they could be able to really continue learning despite your limited their limited access with you?
Okay. So I do this. I always do this every weekend. So I have my plan, and then instruction, and then assessment, and then I always end with support, and then go back to my plan. Uh, why? So I have to plan what will be done for the week. Okay, and sometimes I have to modify it, uh, uh, based from what we had the following week, and based from how I assess them if they are really ready to move on to the next lesson or to the next topic. And then during the instruction, there is of course assessment also during the learning, or during the instruction time, and then I have to assess them and then give them support. Okay, so during the support, you give timely and constructive feedback, and I always at the end of the week ask them to have a reflection to assess learning. Okay, so to assess what they gain during the week, because giving online quizzes or giving those tasks, okay, it is valuable as well, but this reflection, metacognition, is a higher form of learning. So from there, I can really assess what are their needs, and also if the instruction is too if the pacing is too fast, or are they really able to cope up with the technology that we are using. So from those reflections, because what I like about the reflections of the students, it's not only the content, but they also reflect on how they are learning, and what are the difficulties or challenges that they are or that they went through during the learning or during the week.
Right. I like it that in this slide you're showing flip grid. How exactly
Yes, yeah.
in example, how exactly can video recording help you in doing, say, formative assessments?
Okay, so in form, like for example here, so I asked them questions. I gave a prompt. I asked them questions. What are the key takeaways or new knowledge or skills they got? And then from it's more authentic. So the learning or the comments feedback that I'm getting from them is more authentic for me. So I
Mhm.
can really assess what they learn. And after that, you can also provide feedback after. So you can also tell here in Flipgrid, they can give you or they can take a video and then tell you comment on what they learned during the week, and then after that you can also provide feedback. And what I do is I also ask for peer feedback or peer assessment, like what is mentioned
I
here
like
in the slide. We don't learn just by doing. Okay? It's not that we don't learn by doing. We don't learn just by doing, but we also learn more. Okay, by reflecting on what we've done. So at the end of the week, what have we done for the week? What are the things that you learned? What are the challenges that you had? So it's reinforcing for the students. So
I like that. I like that you're also highlighting the importance of allowing students to be given the choice to say something about themselves, the power of giving them the ability to show their voice in a certain activity. But not only that, I like it that you're able also to capitalize on the importance of sharing their difficulties, because at the end of the day it also fosters that important skill, that's grit, that not everything is easy, not everything is something that they could get. And by embracing the difficulty that they're able to encounter, they'll be able to learn from those difficulties. And if knowing that there are other students that are embarking the same boat, they're also able to feel na hindi lang pala ako yung nahirapan dito. Meron din palang taong nahirapan.
yes,
Right. I like
yes,
that.
yes.
And
So may
right.
collaboration, may ano sila, may sharing. Yes, may sharing
Yes, the sharing of experiences, even if it's just done
experiences
remotely,
remotely.
they feel that's why they're now able to digitally empathize. And I like that you're not only teaching them content, you're teaching them values, you're teaching them the
Mhm.
ability to be able to empathize with each other. I feel that particularly with Flipgrid, you're able to empathize by watching the movie or the expressions or the videos of the other classmates. They could like that,
Mhm.
am I correct? And they're
Yes,
able to share,
yes.
oh, now I can relate.
Yeah.
Naiintindihan ko kung saan sila nanggagaling, right? Right.
Yes, yes. I remember there's one. I just checked their reflections yesterday, and there's one student who said, "Oh, may shinare yung isa." So a student shared how she learned more, okay, about that particular topic, and then that student got the idea, and then she said, "Oh, okay, so this is what I should also be doing." And next time that we have the same lesson, or that we not really the same lesson, but we have the same like activity, then I will be doing the same thing. Okay, probably to make to make my learning more valuable and meaningful for
Meaningful.
her.
That's correct. Meaningful.
Yes.
Inject
Mhm.
tayo ng isang question from our audience, from our FB Live audience. Meron akong tanong
Oh,
dito
okay.
from Abby Quesada de Guzman. Good day, sir, ma'am. As a teacher, what are those things we must consider and provide if we have those students with different learning styles, conducting those assessment and feedback? O, advance yung tanong ni mama. Napunta na tayo, eksakto yung tanong ni ma'am. How exactly are
Okay.
you able to really select so that your students can easily adapt to that to the lessons that you're presenting to them?
Okay, so what we need to provide them is to give them a learning activity or a learning task that they have a choice. So to empower their voices, to empower their learning experience, and to develop their learning experience more. I suggest to give them a choice when it comes to how they are going uh, to do the task. So it's not that okay. So for example, you ask them to do a reflective essay. Okay, and some students they wanted a video presentation of that. Some students wanted written. Some students wanted typewritten. So giving them a choice and giving them different ways on how they will be providing or that how they will be doing the tasks will make it a more meaningful learning experience for them. Because if we just restrict ourselves from okay, so you have to do this on this platform, and then you have to write it down or you have to type it here, then they will be restricted, they will be limited. So give them different opportunities.
Right. I like that you're able to capitalize on the importance of giving choices, right? And as you mentioned a while ago, you're not limiting the students to utilize one app. Example, kung
Yes.
video, pwede kung magaling sila magsulat, pwede silang mag-written, or kung gusto nila mag-drawing, pwedeng mag-drawing. My question there
Yes.
would be, syempre, of course, on the teacher's end, syempre, hindi ba mahirap yung magagawa ka pa ng separate rubric?
Assess.
Kasi iba-ibang activities eh. Since maganda yung nagpo-provide ka ng learning path. Tama ba yon? I really
Yes.
appreciate that. On a teacher's point of view, mahalaga that you're providing learning paths. However, the question is, of course, since we're talking about assessment and giving
Assessment.
feedback,
Yes.
right? Wouldn't it be taxing also that there are different activities, and how are you able to ensure that you're able to really get the right, not only content, but to get the accurate presentation that you wanted your students to present?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. Now that's why in remote learning, in this type of learning, what I did is I use rubric. Okay, and in providing rubric, it's more of the content. Like for example, if the student may created a video or a song or wrote it down, it's not the aid or it's not the medium that they use that I am grading, but it's the content. So where was the student, for example, I want you to identify three effects of climate change and how it impacts a particular ecosystem. So from there, the student can write paragraphs or the student can create a video. But what I'm grading there is the three or are the three effects and what are the impacts. So that's that's my concern. Not I'm not focusing on the creativity, but still the students has this opportunity to provide or to cultivate or to develop his or
Right.
her creativity. But what I keep on telling them is do not focus more on how are you going to be creative. I am focusing on the contents or the content of your submission, because that might be a problem also. Okay, for students, especially because when I gave this video making task or creating a blog, they focus more on that, and it's time consuming. I understand for them, so they might they might be more engaged on the task itself, but we are compromising the content. So I keep reminding them that okay, this is the rubric, and you have to focus on this. Yes.
You're providing them focus. I like that idea that you're really ensuring that ito dapat yung maging core ng ating output. Your content or your whatever
Mhm.
skill that you're measuring is the fundamental that you're going to measure, or you're going to assess, if I may use that way, at
Yeah.
hindi yung medium or yung method
Mhm.
ng presentation yung
Yes.
magiging uh, fundamental sa presentation nila. I like that.
Yes.
Kuha tayo ulit ng questions from FB Live. Normal schooling na ba sa China, sir? This is from Pilar
It
Hernandez.
sobrang laki kasi ng China. So there are some provinces they are open already. So some schools, especially local schools, but for international schools, they are stricter. So and ano na kasi, like for international schools, ano namin ngayon, vacation namin ngayon. Actually, kakatapos
Right.
ng school
Right.
year.
So
But for other
kumbaga
schools,
ngayon
they are
right. Summer vacation kayo ngayon sa China.
yes for international
Yeah.
schools, but for local schools, they are open already. Some
Still
provinces,
ongoing.
some
Right.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, meron pa ako isang tanong, sir, from Charmaine Galano. Hindi ba malilito yung mga bata because you're providing choices? Hindi ba malilito yung mga
Mhm.
bata na ang dami-dami nilang kiniklik? Lalo na kung may Quizlet, CISO, may Edmodo pa, may learning
Mhm.
management, may iba't ibang learning management system pa silang kiniklik plus yung edtech tools. Hindi ba yon sila
Mhm.
malilito?
Yes, as a teacher, yun, ang tip and tricks, okay, limit your tools. So start with two, of course, you start with one, start, and then you eventually, and then again, go back to your objectives. Like, not because ang ganda nitong tool, not because promising itong tool, you will keep introducing and introducing. No, okay, it happened to us before. We keep introducing and introducing, and then we found out that it's not really helping the students. Like what you
Right.
mentioned, it's bombarding for them. So what we did and what I did in my class is I actually provided them, okay, so this is where you are going to put all your submissions. This is for our reflections. It's like you have a tech pack. Okay? It's like a pack that only these are the only tools that we are going to use. And I've been using this like pack for 3 years already. So right now they are used to it. But for those who are just starting, I suggest
Starting.
start small. Okay, so little small steps, and what I would also suggest to not use our students as our guinea pig. Okay? They are not our, don't test these tools with them. Test it with
Tama.
your colleagues. Test it
Tama.
with your colleagues and then check it out. Okay, will this be helpful? Check it with your department. Will this be helpful? Because again, there are myriad of tools that you can use, but check it out first with your colleagues. And then once you think that, or once you evaluated that this will be helpful, let's say for a math subject or for social studies, then that's the time that you deploy that
Very
program or that
good.
tool.
Tama yung, I like that you're able to really value or you're able to emphasize data privacy. Kasi syempre mga bata
Mhm.
yan, minors yan.
Yes.
Tama yung advice mo, sir, na test it out with your colleagues. Kasi syempre, they would
Yes.
be able to provide correct feedback on how viable the source or the tool would be
Yes.
to your classes. Very good yon. And at the same time,
Yes. Mhm.
gusto ko din, sir, yung kinapitalize mo din, yung balikan mo yung plano, start small. Don't integrate a
Mhm.
lot of things. Remember,
Yeah.
ang fundamental role ng isang teacher is to align it to your competence and to your content. Dahil
Yeah.
kung hindi naman align dun sa content mo, bakit mo gagamitin, 'di ba? So papagurin mo lang yung
Yes.
sarili mo, 'di ba? And at the same time, syempre pagod ka bilang teacher, you're also channeling that same feeling to your students. So dapat,
Your
I
students.
agree with
Yes.
student. I agree with sir na dapat start small. Kung ano lang yung kailangan mo, piece it out, and at the same time, be an expert on that. Gamitin mo ng tama.
Yes.
Kasi kagaya ni sir, 3 years niya nang ginagamit. So syempre, manipulado niya na ng mabuti. Alam niya na kung ano yung uh, good points and bad, not so good points nung app na yon. So syempre,
Mhm.
gamitin mo lagi yung mapapadali yung buhay mo. Hindi ko sinasabing wag kayong
Amen.
mag-try. Di ba? I'm not saying na wag
Yes.
kayong
Yes.
mag-try. But it's good also to always capitalize on your niche as a teacher. Wag mong pagurin yung sarili mo. Di ba? Don't,
Yes.
lalong-lalo na ngayon, iba ang stress natin ngayon, iba ang anxiety level ngayong
Yes.
remote classes.
That's
Tama
true.
ba? So,
Yeah.
dapat bawasan natin
Yes.
yung bagay na makakapag-apekto ng ating mga stress. Very good.
Yes.
Segues
Yes.
me to my next question, sir. Siyempre, ngayon, lalong-lalo na, concern ngayon ng maraming teachers natin yung walang materyales. Di ba siya? It's important also in assessment for learning that you have to be able to capitalize on needs assessment. Paano, sir, kung nalaman nyo wala palang gamit na ganito yung student? They lack resources for that matter. How are you able,
Uh,
how do you deal with those instances?
actually, I have some instances and some students, okay, who are actually suggesting, teacher, can I do this instead of that? Can I? Because that that then give them their choice. Okay? And when it comes to the choices that I provided them, I always make sure that there is a traditional way. Okay, like what you're seeing here, I still uh, encourage and I still accept, okay, those students who wanted to use their own notebooks. Okay, so they have their own notebooks, and which they brought back home, prior to remote learning, or if they have their own, then it's also good. So they have their own learning journal that they can use. But what I noticed with the students is they, especially for those new in using these edtech tools, they are really engaged and they're really motivated to use this. But for some who doesn't really have this, resources, then you can still go back. So that should be part of your choice. Okay, you out of those three choices that you can give them, that third choice would be a traditional one. So,
Right. Gusto ko
even
yung
though they don't have resources, they can still.
right. Tama yung binigay na insight ni Sir. Huwag nating pilitin, 'di ba sabi nga nila, charity begins at home. You cannot give what you don't have, 'di ba? So kung wala talaga, huwag nating pilitin na gawin yung isang bagay kasi magbumukha lang tayong, kagaya ng sabi ni Sir, nagmumukha lang tayong guinea pig, pinagpa-practicean lang natin yung mga bata. And at the same time, tayo din mismo, pinagpa-practicean natin yung sarili natin. At nagmumukha lang din tayong bawas yung credibility natin. Lalong-lalo na kung hindi naman natin kayang ibigay yung mga bagay na hindi naman natin talaga kaya. So example, kung ito lang yung resource natin, if kaya lang modular, it's totally fine. Engage with modular activity, and then just make sure, remember, dahil hindi tayo pwedeng magkita palagi, kailangan i-ensure lang natin na yung mga, kagaya ng sabi ni Sir, instructions would be very fundamental. Kailangan malinaw yung disenyo para alam ng mga estudyante, the kids would be able to know where exactly are you coming from, and they would be able to accomplish the task you're giving them. So that it's a win-win situation. At the end of the day, the goal here is a win-win situation. You would be able to teach them as teachers, and the students will be able to perform the way you designed your lessons. Again, alignment is a key. Alignment of whatever skill, competence, and content that you wanted to present to them is a key. Whatever resource is available to them. Tama yun.
Yes.
And bigay ako ulit ng isang FB live question. Galing to kay May Barsa Versosa. Good afternoon, Miss Emmy, Sir Africa. This afternoon session is really interesting. I've tried using some tools in my formative assessments. All of them provided mechanisms where teacher can write feedback in every test items. For example, if the students write a certain item that's incorrect, I can write an explanation on it, etc. My question is, can these types of comments be considered valid feedback? Kunyari, sir, yung kanina sinusulat mo kanina, di ba, yung inink mong mga feedback, pwede ba natin i-consider yung valid feedback coming from teachers?
Yes, of course. These are what the students need. So this feedbacks, like for example, meron kasi yan yung, like, correct me if I'm wrong, pero yun yung generated na, like if this multiple choice question, and then if ito yung naging answer, may ibibigay na feedback, you can or may makikita right away ng student yung feedback. Of course, that's a formative feedback for them, and of course it's valid because it will reinforce their learning. So mas malalaman ng bata, mas malalaman ng estudyante kung ano ba yung tama at mali. Kasi maganda nga yun kasi yung, like what you mentioned a while ago, the immediate feedback, meron right away. That's what I like with using technology, with using these platforms na nakakapag-provide ng immediate feedback. So if we think that the students need the content or the content knowledge, and we have to reinforce it, then that's the exact activity that we will be giving to them, right? Yung mga multiple choice questions, and then na makakapagbigay ng or makakapag-provide ng immediate feedback. So from there, it's not going to be taxing or challenging for us because we will not be checking it, pen and paper.
Right.
Okay, so we can focus more. We can focus our energy and our effort to something or to something that or to those more important uh, things na kailangan natin i-provide din or
Right.
i-assess din or to focus on the feedback.
Ang tanong pa, follow-up question, in given that experience, what type of feedback are effective in supporting assessment and learning? Anong klaseng feedback sa palagay niyo yung nakakapagpa-motivate sa mga bata to continue learning?
Yung mga generated, yung mga
Right.
agad.
So, in-automate yung feedback.
Yung automated, what I do is not just to provide the correct answer. Kasi like sasabihin natin yung correct answer. We can also include where the student can get or what other materials that the student can use in order to learn more about that topic. So instead of just giving this is the correct answer, no, okay. So you might want to check this book page or this website to know more about this topic. So if you can do that, then mas extended yung learning. So we can extend the learning of the students. Yes.
Tama yung sinabi ni Sir. Remember in our previous module, feedback can be given in three levels. Dapat pwede siyang task, pwede siyang process feedback, pwede siyang personal feedback. So yung sinasabi ni Sir, pwedeng dun sa task feedback niya, aside from the automated generated feedback, pwedeng kunyari kapag nagkaroon kayo ng synchronous class, pwedeng yung i-explain further at magbigay kayo additional reading para mag-deepen yung kanilang knowledge. May mga apps actually na ganon na halimbawa magbibigay ka ng skill tapos pwede ka na ring mag-prescribe doon na kung hindi niya nakuha, read further into this topic by clicking this link, mga ganon. So,
yes,
in that way, you could be able to really address right away where the skill would be lacking. Para kahit na hindi mo man siya nakikita synchronously or hindi man kayo laging face-to-face nakikita through computer, may mga applications na pwedeng i-identify kagad yung limited skill ng bata after a certain formative assessment you give them, and then they could continue reading. Tama yung sinabi ni Sir na bigyan mo kagad ng continuous reading para mapakita nila kagad na ganito pala yung dapat namin gawin or dagdagan yung kanilang knowledge on certain things. Tapos Sir, going back, let me continue on. May question kasi dito na paano yung mga walang device? Kasi kagaya nung mga nasa remote areas. Paano kung wala silang mga computer and all? Just to answer, again, i-deepen ko ulit yung sagot namin ni Sir. Hindi natin pipilitin kung ito lang yung merong resource. Kung hindi talaga kaya yung computerized, hindi natin kayang mag-digitize, again, charity begins at home. Maraming prescribed modes of learning or modes of teaching na binigay ang ating Department of Education. Whatever you see being fit, gamitin natin yon. Pero tandaan na on a general scale, kagaya ng ibinigay ko nung umpisa, na ang fundamental role ng teacher ay align your competence to the content that you're going to teach. And kagaya ng sabi ni Sir, piliin nyo lang yung tamang resources na gagamitin ninyo para nang sa gayon ay magamit ninyong mabuti yung inyong resources at makapagpatuloy yung mga bata sa pag-aaral ng inyong mga asignatura. Okay, I hope I was able to answer that question. And then, second to the last question, Sir, moving forward. As a science teacher, marami na kayong nabigay na tools na pwedeng gamitin ng mga teacher on motivation, right? Formative assessments can be utilized for motivation, right? Anong feeling ng mga bata pag ginagamit nila tong mga tools na ito, Sir?
I'm really, really surprised kasi I've been using this in the classroom. So sa classroom setting, ginagamit na namin mga online quizzes, Kahoot, Quizlet. But then when we transition to remote learning, the same feeling, okay? Yung motivation nila, and yung surprise nila, and yung engagement nila in learning is nandun pa rin. Okay? What I like about this like for example in Kahoot, is aside from the question, right away, pwede kang mag-discuss so through the slides. So you're not you're reinforcing the learning. So may question ka, then they can answer, and then you can discuss, okay, for a short time yung regarding dun sa question, and then if you still have time, you can actually like have a sharing with the students.
I
So
like that
yeah,
idea,
it's
sir. Tama yun, sir. Tama po yung binigay niyo pong tip na dapat po, kasi di ba karaniwan pag nagpapalaro po tayo, marami na po ngayong edtech tools na ginagamit para ma-motivate at maging active learning yung mga bata. Kasi parang tayo gustong-gusto natin na alive yung mga bata natin sa klase natin.
yeah.
Yan, gustong-gusto natin yan bilang mga teacher. Pero ito yung nalilimutan natin. Tama yung advice ni sir na dapat wag tayong mag-stick lang dun sa happy thoughts, happy moments ng pagtuturo. Kailangan right after i-process natin kung halimbawang may nagkamali. Nag-generate naman yan ng mga graphs tama ba sir?
Yes.
Nag-generate yan kung saan yung batang nagkamali. So dapat pinapaliwanag natin ano ba yung bakit nagkamali yung mga bata? Ano yung dapat nilang mga points or terms na i-avoid nila para nang sa gayon, kapag binigay niyo to ulit tong parallel question na kagaya nito, hindi na nila ulit ma-avoid nila yung mga ganitong pagkakamali. Kasi again, formative.
Yes.
Right. Kailangan ma-form
Yes. So going back again.
Right.
Going back again to dun sa pinag-usapan natin kanina, yung immediate and constructive feedback. So right away dapat ma-correct.
Tama yung sabi ni sir. Dapat right away, nagbibigay ka kagad ng feedback. So I'll show you a short video on Schoology on how we're able to really integrate some of your
the quiz
tools.
tool of Schoology. Later on, I'll be giving you ways on how to be able to utilize it for formative assessments. Let's get started. We are here in the menu of Schoology where you find quiz. So in order for you to add quiz, you just have to access add material and then add test or quiz. And then you may also include a title, the due date for the quiz, the number of points that you're going to have for that specific quiz, the schedule for that quiz, category, and other things that you need to fill out in order for you to be able to manipulate the quiz menu. After which, you can also include in your menu questions, of course. And these are the important types of questions that you can include in your quiz. So there's a true or false, a multiple choice, an ordering, short answer essay question, fill in the blanks, matching, or you can also get questions from your question banks in your Schoology account, or you can import tests or quizzes from your other courses. You can also put page break and then text. Alongside, after that, you can press add questions. Once you press add questions, you can start typing the question you want to include. So example, in this case, we're putting a true or false question for your Schoology demo. Upon typing, you can also check for the key where you can also ensure that the right answers will be checked accordingly as you key it in. So upon typing the question, you can also start checking your key. So you can either check the spelling of your true or false, write the correct answer, and then check also the number of points that can be given. And you can also align the learning objective that's going to be assessed by that specific question. And then what's good about the Schoology quiz is that immediately you can provide feedback. By clicking show feedback, you can already provide a short explanation of why the answer is incorrect or why the answer is correct. So there you have it. That's one good way of doing assessment for learning through Schoology.
Right.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Right. So that's one way in including ito dahil dun sa mga exams na yon, lahat ng mga features of assessment for learning pwedeng gawin through i-automate natin through your learning management system, in this case Schoology. Ngayon sir, science ang tinuturo nyo sir, so syempre hindi lang naman content yung tinuturo nyo sir, meron ding mga lab skills, right? Kailangan nyo pumunta sa
Yes.
laboratory. So how do you manage doing so?
What I utilize is virtual simulation. So there is PET simulation. So and what I did here is, of course, you have to explain it first. Hindi mo pwedeng ibigay lang basta sa mga bata. What I did is, so I explained it to them, so the PET simulation, and then what's good with this is if you have a communication tool or conference tool which can do like breakout rooms, so you can have them collaborate as well, so pwedeng may group project. So in this particular activity, I am explaining to them how are they going to navigate through the PET simulation. It's eating and exercise virtual lab, and then after that I put them in groups, so I put them in breakout rooms, so where they collaborate, and then after that they provided the outcome, which is a lab report. So yeah, you can also check out. There are a lot of lots of simulations, virtual labs that
Right.
they can.
Last two questions, sir.
use.
My second to the last question would be, what do you think is the importance of, again, di ba, etong slide na to, sir, nagbibigay kayo ng feedback, right? Particularly kapag nagpapagawa kayo ng mga investigative reports, right? In science,
Yes.
di ba importante yung mga investigative journals. So, how
Mhm.
exactly do you promote process feedback in creating outputs in your science class?
Yeah, like for example here, talagang tinatsyaga ko siya to comment on their work. So to allow student to observe the students' content knowledge through this performance tasks. So I have this assessment here serves as an interpretation model to draw inferences from the performer, from the evidences of their performance. So through here, so I can comment on their work. And what I like about this is there is a revision. Okay, hindi porket pinasa na ni student, that's the final. Okay, when we talk about formative assessment, we are forming them. So you can have as like a maximum of 3 submissions before the student will finalize their work. So that's how I do my lab reports and my reflective essays as well. So they have 3 chances of submitting their work until their final work. So throughout yung process, again, we are assessing, and they are assessing themselves as well until they come up with their final one. Kasi we're not talking about summative here. When we talk about summative, that's the mastery of it. Yeah. So we're talking about formative here. So we want to form them. Okay. We don't want to punish them. No, this is not correct. So you'll have this grade. No. I comment on their work, and then from there they revise.
Right.
To improve.
And thank you, sir. And then my last question is, paano, sir, ito galing ito kay Sir Ray Mendenilla. What do you do? What if kung the student is not able to comply with the deadline? Of course, in the process, there would be deadlines to beat, right? What are the best tips that you can provide so that the students will be able to manage their deadlines?
I would suggest to add this to your rubric. Okay, na when it comes to, or if the student was able to comply with the requirement within the certain time, then that because that's part of time management, right? So if the student was able to manage their time, but again, it depends on the situation as well. That's why you have to give them, okay, what are the expected tasks, and what are the even the summative assessments. What are the expected activities that they will be doing, so that they can prepare themselves as well, so that they know what are expected of them at the end of this lesson. So from there, you'll have lesser chance of having these students who are not complying. Okay. And again,
Right.
regular checks. Yes.
I agree. Regular checks. Tama yon. Tama yung advice ni sir. Umpisa pa lang kasama yun sa alignment planning. Kasama yun sa pagbibigay natin ng value sa kung paano natin masisiguro na yung mga bata magagawa nila yung mga work na inassign natin sa kanila. So, kasama sa planning ay yung pagpo-provide ng
Yeah.
calendar on how to be able to comply with your requirements. So, dapat kagaya na nabanggit ni Sir Raymond kanina, meron siyang chart ng listahan ng gagawin at kung kailan ito ipapasa, right? Para the kid or the student would be mindful of what are the important things that they need to be able to accomplish, whether during synchronous class or asynchronous class. Again, we are the ones setting the kind of tone you want your class to be. So dapat tayo yung nagmamaniobra nun. Dapat tayo yung nagbibigay ng mahalagang bagay na gagamitin ng mga bata para magawa nila yung kanilang gawain. So sir, any last words, any last tips that you can give our teachers as they embark form assessment for learning in this remote setup?
Uh, First and foremost, I would like to thank everyone, even though you're not, watching right now or here right now with us in Facebook Live. But I would like to thank all of the Filipino teachers for doing a great job in planning and implementing this remote learning. It's not an easy task. I understand. I've experienced that for the past 5 months, and saludo talaga ako sa inyo. I have high regards to the teachers in the Philippines. Just stay calm. Okay? Keep it simple. Keep your content simple, expectations simple, and keep the activity simple. Don't be afraid to try out. Okay, and experiment on things. But okay, again, don't use your students as your as your guinea pig. All right. So planning is the key. Planning is the key.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sir Raymond. Thank you very much for joining us today for our session on assessment for learning. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us during our sessions, our FB Live sessions for today. We really hope that you're able to pick up a lot of beautiful tips from our resource speaker. And I hope that it would be valuable as you prepare to embark remote learning in your own institutions. I also would like to acknowledge those teachers who gave beautiful questions in the FB live chats. Thank you very much. While I wanted to answer you, I'll try to answer it later on my own later during my free time in the chats. I really try my very best to give time to answer to all your questions. But I'm sure in one way or another, you were able to pick a lot of things from today's lesson. So again, see you next Saturday for assessment of learning. So let's try to dig deeper onto how are we going to be able to prepare on assessment of learning, summative assessments next week, so that we could be able to ensure that we're really preparing the right things for our students. Thank you again and have a wonderful afternoon, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.